just happened. We just found out that Charlie Kirk got shot.
Look, I haven't seen anything that confirms.
Whoa.
Murder for having a different opinion from somebody else.
Everyone knows Joe Rogan isn't the kind of man to bite his tongue. But this time, his curiosity lit a fire that spread far beyond the walls of his studio. During a recent episode of The Joe Rogan Experience, the comedian and podcast host casually mentioned something strange about the circumstances surrounding Charlie Kirk's death. It wasn't a full-blown accusation, more like an offhand comment, but it was enough to send the internet spiraling into speculation. Before the clip even stopped circulating, people's attention had shifted away from Rogan and straight toward someone much closer to the late political figure: his widow, Erica Kirk. A video of one of Charlie's past shows began making the rounds. In it, he introduced his wife with the words, "My wife joins us, the beautiful, legendary Erica. I love you so much. You're my best friend." Watching it again after his death made many viewers emotional. But soon that grief turned into suspicion. The question no longer seemed to be how Charlie Kirk died, but who might have gained from his death. And strangely enough, that speculation began pointing toward one of the most powerful men in America, former President Donald Trump. Rogan didn't make any direct accusations, but his tone spoke volumes. The strange circumstances surrounding the death of Turning Point U.S.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. Why? Wait.
Founder being shot on stage during a university event were already unsettling. But Rogan calling it weird opened a door that the public couldn't resist stepping through. He mentioned that too many things about the case felt too neat, too perfectly arranged. The alleged shooter had somehow smuggled an antique World War I rifle into a crowded event, fired several shots, and then vanished, only to be captured later under mysterious conditions. The investigation wrapped up quickly, and the official story felt strangely convenient. Rogan laughed and said, "If I were a cop, I'd be sitting there saying, 'This story is garbage. None of it adds up.'" That single remark was enough to send the internet into chaos. Forums and social media exploded with theories that Rogan wasn't just questioning the shooter. He was hinting that there might be something more sinister happening behind the scenes. He later said, "If you want people..."
My wife joins us, Erica Kirk,
Hi,
the beautiful,
everyone.
legendary Erica.
I love you so much.
I love you.
You're my best friend.
Welcome to the Charlie
People
Kirk.
to stop believing in justice just add a bunch of weird details. Confuse the story. That's how you hide the truth. And that's when the attention turned fully toward Erica Kirk. At just 36, Erica had already built her own brand. She was an entrepreneur, podcast host, and former beauty queen. But what shocked everyone was how quickly she rose to replace her husband. Barely days after Charlie's funeral, she was named CEO of Turning Point USA, the very organization he had founded. The timing didn't just raise eyebrows, it set off alarms. Rogan was careful with his words, saying, "I'm not saying anyone knows what's really going on yet." But to millions of his listeners, the situation seemed far too convenient. Clips of his podcast were replayed again and again, with fans analyzing every pause, every look, every sigh. Many became convinced that Rogan's skepticism hinted at something deeper, maybe even Erica's involvement. But what truly set the internet on fire wasn't Rogan's comments. It was what happened at Charlie Kirk's memorial service. The event was attended by thousands: family, friends, media figures, and major politicians. Former President Donald Trump delivered the eulogy. His words were somber, respectful, and emotional. But what happened afterward grabbed everyone's attention. As the crowd stood in silence, Trump wrapped an arm around Erica, pulling her close as she wiped away tears. What should have been a comforting gesture turned into a moment that many online viewers saw as something else entirely. To them it looked intimate, too close, too familiar. Erica raised her hand in the air, forming the "I love you" sign, and Trump leaned in, nodding, whispering something into her ear. Cameras flashed, and that single image changed everything. The conversation shifted from mourning to body language analysis. People wondered why Erica hadn't stepped back. Then the internet remembered something that made the story even more complicated. Before she was Erica Kirk, she had been Erica France, a model and former Miss Arizona USA contestant, during the exact years when the Miss USA pageant was owned by none other than Donald Trump himself. Suddenly, the comforting hug at the memorial looked less like a random gesture and more like a reconnection from the past. In 2012, long before her marriage to Charlie Kirk, Erica had earned the Miss Arizona USA crown, securing her place in the National Miss USA competition, part of Trump's Miss Universe organization. Photos from that time resurfaced, showing Erica posing with pageant contestants under banners reading "Trump Properties." What once seemed like a small footnote in her past now looked like a missing puzzle piece. Online detectives pieced the timeline together. Trump's pageant days, his political influence, his close relationship with Charlie Kirk, and now his emotional connection with Erica. Conspiracy theorists flooded social media, claiming that Erica's sudden leadership role at Turning Point USA was no coincidence. Of course, none of these theories have been proven, and much of what's spreading online is pure speculation. But once the internet latches onto an idea, it grows beyond control. Joe Rogan, perhaps unintentionally, lit the spark that set this whole wildfire ablaze. His brief, skeptical remark led millions to question everything about Charlie Kirk's death, from the shooting itself to the people who stood to gain from it. Erica Kirk once stood on a brightly lit stage, smiling as she spoke about her simple joys, spending time with her family, playing with her dogs and sometimes her cats. That was during her days as a beauty pageant contestant, long before her name would be tied to one of the most talked about tragedies in modern politics. At that time, the Miss USA pageant was still owned by Donald Trump, who was known for his hands-on approach. He attended rehearsals in person, showed up backstage without notice, and often approved contestants' appearances himself. So when Erica stepped onto that stage years ago, there's a good chance Trump already knew who she was. After her time in the pageant world, she stayed connected to the same social and charitable circles that surrounded Trump's empire. A world where business, entertainment, and politics constantly overlapped. There's no confirmed evidence that Erica and Trump shared a personal relationship during those early years, but their proximity was close enough to raise questions later. Could Trump have known her long before Charlie Kirk entered her life? No one can say for certain. But those questions became far louder after the sudden death of her husband, the founder of Turning Point USA. Only a few weeks after Charlie's shocking assassination, the organization's board announced that Erica Kirk would take over as CEO. On paper, it looked like a tribute, a widow carrying on her husband's legacy. But to many observers, the timing felt off. Some even suspected that the decision had been quietly influenced, perhaps even approved by Trump himself. When Erica finally appeared in public again, she looked calm yet determined. Dressed in black, she took the stage and spoke with fiery conviction. "You have no idea the fire you've lit inside this wife," she declared. "The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry." Her words spread online within hours, becoming both a symbol of resilience and a target of speculation. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan's casual comments about the case continued to stir chaos. Rogan didn't mention Erica or Trump by name, but his tone implied suspicion. He talked about stories that don't add up and people who cover their tracks, and that was all it took. His millions of listeners turned into digital detectives overnight. Online investigators began dissecting every video, every appearance Erica made since the funeral. They examined her facial expressions, her tone of voice, even her handshakes, searching for anything that might prove their theories. And what they found only made the rumors louder. Erica seemed to be everywhere, attending political galas, appearing at conservative events, shaking hands with influential figures, and standing beside powerful leaders. Her visibility was growing day by day, and even the White House wasn't off limits. She had been spotted there more than once, sometimes standing just a few steps away from Trump himself. At some rallies, she introduced him to the stage. At others, she stood quietly nearby, always close enough to be noticed. To some, it looked like mentorship, Trump guiding the next rising conservative voice. But to others, it looked far more personal. Photographs of them together didn't help silence the whispers. The long glances, the quiet conversations, the subtle body language. Every small gesture was picked apart online. Yet neither Trump nor Erica addressed any of it. Erica continued to post carefully chosen content on social media. Bible verses, messages about faith and strength, photos from church events, and updates about her work. Trump surprisingly remained silent too. But in the digital age, silence doesn't stop rumors. It fuels them. And right now, that silence speaks louder than any public statement could. Joe Rogan, as always, exists in that strange space between entertainer and truth seeker. He's not a journalist or a politician, yet his words carry more weight than most political broadcasts. His podcast has become a global stage where ideas are tested, controversies born, and questions amplified. Millions tune in because Rogan says what others are afraid to. So when he remarked that the Charlie Kirk situation feels weird, it didn't sound like idle gossip. It hit like an earthquake. Whether he intended to or not, Rogan cracked open a conversation that rattled the conservative world. Because if there's even a hint, even a whisper, that Charlie's death, Erica's rapid promotion, and Trump's visible protectiveness are somehow linked, then this story isn't just internet drama. It's a potential political storm waiting to explode. That's the Rogan effect. One stray comment and suddenly a national tragedy becomes a cultural obsession. Part mystery, part political scandal, part human drama. As the story continues to unfold, Erica stays on message. She hosts Turning Point events, speaks about faith and resilience, and avoids interviews that might take her off script. Her supporters call her a woman of strength and purpose. Her critics call her evasive, maybe even calculating. Her calm and polished public image stands in stark contrast to the chaos swirling around her name. She hasn't mentioned Rogan's remarks, and maybe that's intentional. Every word she says would be dissected, twisted, and magnified. Sometimes silence is the only safe move left. Trump too has remained quiet. No interviews, no denials, no clarifications. He continues to appear at Turning Point events, greeting Erica warmly, often treating her as both a protege and the symbolic heir to Charlie's vision. Maybe Rogan was just doing what he always does, tossing a question into the fire and watching how far the flames spread. But this time that question struck a deep nerve in a society already obsessed with conspiracies, secrets, and blurred truths. A public assassination. A widow's rise to power. A too familiar embrace. It's almost poetic. Charlie Kirk built a movement on the idea of seeking truth. Yet now, the truth surrounding his death has become the hardest thing to find. And when Joe Rogan says, something doesn't add up, people don't just move on. They dig, they question, and they obsess, until the line between fact and fiction disappears completely. This time, that obsession might be uncovering the darkest story yet. One where love, loyalty, grief, and ambition collide so tightly that no one can tell who's mourning, and who's quietly taking control.